All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar, what every legal team is going to be talking about in 2026. I'm Evan Wong. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Checkbox. Super stoked to have you all join us today. It should be a really fun discussion with two people that I absolutely love from the industry. I'm going to give them a really brief introduction because if I gave them the full introduction, there's too many accolades to cover off. Okay, so I'm going to do the shortened version. I have here Connie Brenton in the red, her signature red. If you've met her, you know. Connie, oh my goodness. So she's had a career in legal operations, a pioneer in the space, was the CEO and chair of the board at Clock, and was the VP of legal operations at NetApp. And other things as well. And now, today, she is running legalops.com, which she founded. If you're not familiar with legalops.com, definitely check it out. They host regional groups all around the country. Connie is barely in her home, so this is a rare occasion for us here. And she's also, together with Jeff Frankie, of course, established Running Legal Like a Business, which is another fantastic conference that has been running now for 3 years. I think this year we celebrated 3 years here. So
Yeah.
four, is it four?
Well, for this year,
For this, well, coming,
2026.
yeah.
Yeah.
Super exciting stuff. And so super excited to have Connie. So thank you for joining us. And then we have Jen Lenander as well. So Jen is currently the senior director and chief of staff of legal at Elasticsearch, the AI search company. Before that, she was at CSL, and one of the things, if you check out her LinkedIn, she introduces herself as, I'm a person who always asks myself, there's got to be a better way to do this. That is literally me as well. I can't help when I'm like just living my life. There's just that part of the in the back of my brain that's just like there's got to be a better way to do this, and that's probably why I started an automation and workflow company. So, and why we're such good friends. Um, so I have Jen Lenander here as well, who is fabulous and super insightful as always. So I'm super excited to have you both. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Yep.
All right. Well, we are here to talk about trends and what we should be looking for into 2026. You both have such a great vantage point, I feel, into the market, into the industry. So I'm super excited about the conversation. Maybe to kick us off, I'll start with Connie and then Jen, you'll follow right after. Maybe to kick us off, like let's zoom out for a second. Let's not get too in the weeds of like AI and trends. Well, sorry, like legal trends in particular. Like let's zoom out. What are some of the macro trends do you think that are happening in the world, regulatory? It can also be, like within organizations and enterprise that are driving the biggest changes to the in-house legal function as we head into 2026. What are some of those forces, Connie?
Okay, so I would start back. I would look backwards first because the role of the legal operations has been predicated on the role of the general counsel. And so the general counsel, way long time ago, was one person, and it was generally somebody who wasn't making it well in a law firm, and they just threw everything over the fence. We have now come to the point where legal departments are hundreds and sometimes thousands of people, and they have to be managed like a business. So as you see the role of the general counsel expanding, so you see the role of legal operations and technology and the way that we deliver legal services changing. Of course, we have and have had for now probably 20 years, technology advances. And those technology advances have now picked up to the point where if you aren't part of a community, if you aren't participating in things like this, there is no way you can possibly keep up. We're moving at a pace that is unprecedented. Also, legal has the spotlight on us for the first time, really, ever in the enterprise, because the first thing that happened with the advancement of AI is policy. What are we going to do? How are we going to protect uh, everything? And what kinds of guardrails do we need to be putting around this new fast-paced technology. And I think what's really happening now is the spotlight is going on to the general counsel. The role of the general counsel is expanding. And with that expansion, as it has been since the beginning of time, the expansion of the role of the general counsel means the advance of the legal operations. And I should add, of course, we have geopolitical issues that have impacted and will continue to impact where we are going. So, if anybody's worried about, oh my goodness, we're gonna get rid of all of legal, no possible way. It's too complicated. It's becoming more complex. It's global. And so now we need, as a legal department, we need to be creating a strategic advantage for the company. It isn't just, we are no longer just risk assessors. We are here to guard and to guide the company. It's a very exciting time.
Mhm. I think all the lawyers on the call just felt like a sigh of relief when you said we're not going anywhere just anytime soon with AI. It's actually getting more complex and the role of legal is becoming more important.
I didn't say we're not going anywhere with AI. We're not going, the lawyers aren't going anywhere because of complexity, but the AI is
Okay.
definitely going to be changing everybody's life, including the lawyers.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll unpack that plenty in this conversation. What about you, Jen? Like, what macro trends are you seeing?
I think a big macro trend is around data, really, right? Because I think that, right, everything that we're doing now from an AI perspective is all based upon data. And so if we don't have good data integrity, that impacts everything that we're doing. And so I know we'll talk more about AI later, but we need to understand what are our LLM models being trained on, and that impacts everything that we do. And so where is our data within our organizations? How are we using that? Is it clean data? Is it a draft that never became final, but are we relying on that? So I think the data is really like at the top, right? And then that impacts our AI, it impacts our automation, and it impacts everything that we do. So really, to me, that's the big macro thing at the top, that we kind of have to get our data in order so that we can move forward efficiently and effectively.
Mm.
Jen, you bring up a really interesting point, and I couldn't agree with you more. And it is not just our data now, it is the
No.
enterprise data, right? Because now we're going to start interrelating with HR and with finance and with IT.
Yeah.
And it's much easier now to integrate that data into a single source. And oftentimes now, legal is the point of where it's all meeting, right? The data
Mhm.
lakes are being created within the legal confines.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you bring together what the two of you said, it makes complete sense, right? You go from outside counsel to the solo GC, and then you go from a solo GC to teams of 50, 100, 1,000 lawyers. You suddenly have all these, one of the diagrams we often think about a checkbox is you have legal right in the middle, to your point, Connie, like legal right in the middle. And then there's all these spokes that connect with the other parts of the enterprise, whether it's buying something, selling something, launching something like a marketing campaign or a new product or, labor disputes. All these business processes cut through legal. And that creates a really interesting opportunity for, yes, incredible amounts of data that legal has a very unique position to play back to the organization to leverage. But it's also the fact that we've hit this volume and this complexity of being integrated in the business, running legal like a business, right? Like we're integrated with the business. We're not just an outside cost center that's been brought in-house to be more efficient. We're now part of the organizational, like arms and legs. And so that's why this is so important.
Yeah,
I love that.
as you're talking, Evan, the other thing that I'm
Mhm.
thinking about, legal has been very late to the table in terms of technology. And
Mhm.
ironically, that has played into our advantage, because the newest legal technology is now built on a very modern, user-friendly interface. And so oftentimes it is the legal technology that's now being spread across the enterprise versus the
Mhm.
enterprise imposing what we have always used in the past onto legal and the rest of the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that Janine Moran's here from on the call from Hitachi. She shared with me that she started implementing legal technology and the rest of the organization got so excited. Now they come to legal to solve
Mm.
problems. So that's such a cool like inversion of the reputation, right? That legal is a technology laggard. Now people come to us
Yeah.
to kind of for change. Okay, so where does this take us, by the way? So these forces are at play. Um, like what? Let's just answer the webinar question right up front. Like, what will be people talking about in 2026? Maybe
Connie, do you
who
want to
wants to go
start?
first? Yeah.
Go ahead, Jen. It's okay.
Sure. I think obviously AI, right? I think the questions are going to be not should we be using AI, but how and where and what use cases, and what tools do we use? And I know we'll talk about that a little bit later, but then I think it's also what can we automate and what should we automate? I think there's a big difference between those two things, right? And understanding where do we spend our time? How do we prioritize what workflows we automate and which ones do we leave manual? Does that make sense? Um, and then I think again, going back to data, what metrics matter, right? I think it's really important for us to think about that because I think the other part of data is while we have said for years that metrics, that data-driven metrics should make our decisions, I don't think we've always been good at actually doing that. But I really think as we get more into AI and to automation, we really are going to have those metrics at our fingertips, right? Where before it was kind of like somebody who's tracking in a spreadsheet or on a board somewhere. And so now we're going to have real metrics that we can verify. And so that's really going to allow us to start making better decisions based upon those metrics. And so I think that's AI automation and metric driven decision making is truly where we're going in 2026.
I love that. Maybe to bring it to life for people as well, um, like I think the pre-AI world, right? As you said, Jen, we've been talking about data for a long time, and we could have gotten it, but who's trawling through emails to manually count
Right.
the number of requests or like reading through the contracts and I mean, there are people who did that and still do probably, like
Mhm.
literally reading contracts and extracting out the key terms and populating like a spreadsheet and then doing these manual reports. That was the pre-AI world. But like the reason why data is now um, still as important, but now within grasp, is because you have a lot of technology that can automatically like extract out context without the human doing that. And then now you have your data model, your data structure without a human having to go through that. Because let's face it, lawyers aren't going to do that for you. And your business, I mean, we don't want to push that into the business because they're going to create a fuss, right? Every time they come to legal. So it's a big unlock.
It, it wasn't all that long ago that we had an entire intern team in the summer to just read through and extract data. I mean, truly, it's not been that long ago. And you look at it now and you think, holy cow, how archaic was that? The other thing that I think, though, that is going to change in 2026 is the legal department is going to truly be expected to and will deliver a competitive advantage to the business. And Evan, you were talking about this earlier. We are one of the few organizations that span the entire enterprise. So, and Jen, to take in your data component, if we are able to consume, we legal are able to consume and integrate all of the data for the company and keep it safe and guide the business, think of the competitive advantage we can provide to the company in 2026. The other two things are obvious, and I'm going to just state them because it is why everything fails. Change management better be at
Oh
the
yeah.
very top of everybody's list.
Mm,
And the legal department, I think for the first time, really needs to consciously create and strategize around a comms plan
mm.
that integrates with the entire business.
That
Without change management, as we all know, we're preaching to the choir on this one, the best technology in the whole wide world will fail.
yeah.
Amen.
Could not agree more. I think like especially today when so many new tools and ways of working are being launched, right? Like there's just a lot more change and therefore change management that's needed. Um, Big fan. Okay, well, how do you think then, Connie, maybe the mindset that legal teams have, or maybe the businesses that they serve, maybe, how do you think their mindset like towards AI will evolve over 2026? Like we've kind of gone through the era of, oh, what's this AI thing? What can it do? What can it do? Does it hallucinate? I think we were talking so much about hallucination just like a year and a half ago. I don't think many people, we've sort of passed that. That's still a concern, obviously, but we've kind of made our way through that in the cycle. Like, what do you think people will think about when they think about AI in 2026?
So I think that's a really interesting question. And we had a regional event in DC this last week, actually Monday, and we were talking about exactly this and
Yeah.
where has it come? It was probably 8 months ago or so that I spoke at a conference, and one of the people on the panel asked the question, how many of you are using AI every, wait for it, month?
Okay.
You see how that is not very long ago where we were saying, oh, are you using it every month? Now we are, how many times a day are you using it? How many models are
Yeah.
you using? What have you tested? What LLM have you used or do you use? Which one has been trained in your voice? And to your point earlier, we started very fearful, as does everything. And oh my goodness, you can't use it. It's going to hallucinate. We had the one case come up where a hallucinated case law. Uh, and we have worked, it looked like we have worked our way through, but just in the last couple of weeks, and now we have to speak in weeks, not months or years, it looks like some of the models might be hallucinating again. So we're going to go back to, we better be more diligent about either how we're writing our prompt, how we're reviewing what we're getting back from any of our AI technology. And so it goes, right? It is all going to kind of go in a circular fashion. I think it's in at some level, but we are at a pace that none of us have lived at this kind of pace.
Mm. The other day I saw a video. It was fascinating, and I think everyone here will find it very interesting as well. I was watching a video of someone who was saying we're getting to the point of like AI and agents where um, initially we thought that the faster we get an answer, the better it is, right? Because we are impatient and we just like the speed is what's important. And then he sort of talked about this concept of actually now the agents can do multi-day long tasks. Like go away and build me like this. Go and build like recreate Slack for me, like the application. Just build the whole thing for me, and the agent will go off, and like 2 days later comes back and says, "Here's like the entire code base." And in that case, it's not even about speed. It's like it's about genuinely producing high quality output. And then the question is like, what can if AI can do the kind of things we're seeing right now in seconds? What can it actually do if you gave it days, weeks, months? And it's such a fascinating thought experiment as we kind of cross into new use cases of AI. So, yeah, so I just find it really fascinating when you talk about it being in cycles. It's sort of like it was slow and then it's fast, but then it's like, but what can it do if it's slow again? And so, yeah, it's really interesting.
So I purposefully, on a complex matter, I will put into my prompt deep research or
Mm,
think deeply. And then it will outline exactly the thought process and the resources that
mm.
it brought in to answer that particular question. That is expensive. So at some point, we're all going to have to start thinking about how much is this costing, right?
Yeah.
We're basically using it for free now, many of us personally, because they want adoption. But at some point, we're going to have to start talking about cost.
Yeah. Jen, on that note, right, there's always an option, and I think maybe a debate and sometimes
Mhm.
a battle between legal specific AI tools versus more generic horizontal in brackets, enterprise AI tools, right? This might be a conversation that you have with yourself. This might be a conversation you have with IT. What earns the right for legal to be using legal specific AI tools? Is it tied to the use case? Is it tied to what is it?
I mean, I feel like a broken record. It depends on the data and the use case, right?
Mm.
And so Midori on my team, a shout out to her. She shared a research study with the rest of our team a while back. It was a SEMrush study on what are the citations in like a ChatGPT response, and the research showed that 40% comes from Reddit, 26 comes from Wikipedia, right? And then
Mm.
and there's a big graphic that shows all of this history. And so when you think about that, and so if you ask yourself, am I going to ask ChatGPT or Gemini or Perplexity a legal question? You have to know that that is the data source that you're searching. I mean, yeah, there's other things as well. So I think it comes down again to data, right? And I think you use legal specific AI tools where there is a critical legal question that you're asking, right? Is there a risk of malpractice? Then don't use an LLM model that is available to everybody, right? Use something that's grounded in primary legal sources. And there's a bunch out there, right? But if you just need to draft a memo, you could do that in Gemini as long as you're not, asking that to look at legal facts or anything like that. I think the other use case is, Notebook LM allows you to create your own contained model, right? Where it's only scraping the information that you provided. Again, look at the data. What is contained? Like, is it able to hallucinate? Is it able to pull things from other places? And then you make your decision from there. But I think, if I had to say like very basically, like critical legal work, use your legal AI specific tools, everything else. If especially like I love to use AI when I just have a blank sheet of paper. Where do I start from? And I say, here's my stream of consciousness. I don't even know, like, is this a memo? Is this an email? Is this something else? Like, help me get there so that I don't sit here for 20 minutes just caught, right? And stuck. So yeah, that's my thought. But I think it goes back to data and really understanding where's the data being pulled from.
Mm. Absolutely. And then where do you see then, Jen, like AI driving the most value for in-house teams today? Like where is it actually being used and where is it genuinely adding a lift on productivity? Like let's get out of the experimentation bits. That has value, but like where are you seeing it drive value today?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's redlining and research. I think it's as simple as that. I think, right, because redlining, if you're playing using it from a playbook, it's a contained, right? You're saying scrape my playbook against this NDA, MCA, whatever it may be. And same with
Mm.
research. If you are using an AI specific tool for research and it's pulling from primary legal sources, that's right. Those to me are your best use cases at this point. Maybe that changes in the next, I mean, to Connie's point, weeks or months, who knows? But I think right now that's your safest bet.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of explosion in vendors in the space. It's funny because if you think about maybe 10 years ago-ish, like this kind of cycle came around again. It was kind of like AI redlining, but back then it sort of didn't work as well. And then now the models and the generative AI version of AI have come out. This
Mhm.
is obviously a repeating cycle, but with much more success this time around. I've also seen like when you talk about like specific AI versus enterprise AI as well, when you're looking at it from a like a tool to use, like whether it's as you say, like write a memo or review this contract or compare to our playbook. Um, yes, 100%. Like where does it need legal specific context and expertise and diligence? But then there's
Mhm.
also the other way to think about AI is how is AI like infused into existing legal technology that
Mhm.
is considering the workflows of the legal department, right? Because when you use an enterprise tool, the workflows that they consider aren't actually with legal built in mind. And so when the AI gets threaded throughout it also doesn't actually do the job, so to speak. And so I
Mhm.
usually think about AI in like two buckets. It's like AI doing a job and AI like existing and like becoming part of the battery that is powering the platform
Yeah.
of that being a legal specific tool, right? Versus enterprise.
Yeah. I
Mm.
think it's a great way to think about it. Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, so not only does legal function differently and across a more broad audience, we have different processes.
Mm.
And I have always been a fan of workflow. If you're starting, that's where to start. It saves so much time and it is so much more efficient to buy a legal technology for the legal department. Most all of us now have started to train our own personal AI agent. We know how important it is, and we also know how dangerous it is if we accidentally train the wrong thing. And because if you do that, then you speed up a bad process.
Yeah.
And so that is where, we talk about guard and guide. This is one of those areas where probably makes sense in legal to have a legal specific technology.
Mm.
And
Mm.
if I were to use one, if I were to choose a category, I am a big fan of workflow.
Mm.
It's so flexible and versatile. And that is also one of the characteristics of a winning legal team that if you don't have that muscle built up in your legal department now, in 2026, that this is a muscle that you should be putting some energy into in order to just stay current with the technology landscape.
Mm. For the people who have maybe heard of workflow, but maybe in a different context, because it's such an ethereal word that's used to describe many things often, right? But when you talk about workflow as a category, not as a feature, but as a category of software in legal tech, like what's a simple way of kind of helping some of these people who are joining us today understand it maybe and get on the same page?
If this, then that. If you're tracking everything on a spreadsheet, if you are getting approvals through email, if you're having to record anything manually,
Mm.
if you had a governance issue arise, if you have any kind of renewals, anything that is fairly routine and can be automated should immediately go to workflow.
Mm.
It is safer, it's far more efficient, and it's flexible. So most people roll out a workflow, they roll it out thinking, okay, I've got a perfect end to end. We've been doing it for a long time and it's tested and true. Then you automate it and you're like, oh golly, we missed a whole step right there. So it's a way also to ensure that you have good governance
Mm.
and and then if you keep going down the stream, that you have good data. Jen, to your point, you have good data and you can report out on it and you can
Mm.
act on it and ultimately create a competitive advantage for the business.
Mm. Um, I love that, and thank you for doing our pitch for Checkbox. That's Checkbox is a workflow tool, by the way, everyone, if you didn't know. So thank you, Connie. But one of the things I'll add to all of that is it's like I think you mentioned like it's like it's safe and it's like you workflow is interesting because it is deterministic. It is business rules driven. It's point A to point B to point C. And it's actually a really good complement to AI because AI is actually non-deterministic. It deals with like the uncertainty and like the summarization and the contextual inference. But if you tie it with workflow, which gives you the security, the safety, the certainty, you can have a really good blend of best of both worlds. Um, and Jen, I know you are a big workflow user. You've had some successes with workflow on the CLM side, which I want to ask you about as well, and on the like the compliance side as well. Um, any comments around workflow, and then like how do you think about that in the architecture of how you think about CLM?
Yeah, I'm going to actually take those questions opposite just because I think
Okay.
it makes more sense in my brain, I guess, if that's okay. So what Evan's alluding to is at Elastic, we're taking, I would say, a non-traditional approach to CLM. I have looked at a lot of CLMs in my legal ops world, and I've never found one that does everything that I want, and I want everything that I want because I am who I am, right? And so when I think about CLM, I think about intake, and I think about review, and I think about repository in the very basic sense. And in the way we've gotten with technology, you don't need an end-to-end solution to do all of those things. You can buy point solutions. And so that's what we're doing. We're taking intake as a separate tool. We're using a separate redlining tool, and we're purchasing a separate repository tool. And it's so far has worked really well for us. So we have intake already identified. We're using Checkbox. We have a redlining tool that we're using and that we're really happy with. And we're actually in the middle of an RFP for our repository tool. And they will all link together very seamlessly. I'm really excited about it. And it not only will, it's more scalable this way, right? Because one, we can continue to build intake. We can continue to like impact or like improve our repository. Same with redlining. But if at any point, like let's say our redlining tool at some point is not giving us what we want, or there's something new in the market that's just like we need to migrate, we can do that, right? We can rip that out, put the new redlining tool into our process and move on without really interrupting the business because it's one point of that whole end-to-end process.
Mm.
And so I know you wanted to talk a little bit about metrics because right
Yes.
that's what allows us to like
Yeah.
really
Does it
celebrate our
work?
wins. Right? Does it work?
Yeah. Does it work?
Absolutely. It works. So first of all, I know I shouted out Midori. I want to shout out Ashtia, my team, because she led this process. But we implemented self-serve NDAs using Checkbox. We rolled out in August, so we're only a couple months in. But in that time, and I'm gonna cheat because I have metrics on my side. I won't share them. But in that time, we are 61.5% faster at turning around third-party paper because of the workflow automation, which
Wow.
is like just think 61%. Like that's huge in such a short period of time. And I think it's only going to get better. And then on our own paper, on Elastic paper, we're 83% faster at turning around our NDAs. And I just like it's because and I think workflow automation, I think the thing that I always talk about, especially with leadership, it's workflow automation with document generation, right? I think that's a key thing. And
Mm.
that's one of the things that sets Checkbox aside for us, like as the right vendor for us, is we really wanted that document generation because not only can we do this with contracts, we're also doing it on our compliance side. So for example, our conflict of interest process, which I think Melissa's on the call also, she worked on that flow. So shout out to her. So this, which is really cool, right? Melissa sits on our compliance team and she was able to come into Checkbox and build that flow with obviously help from Checkbox. And we worked collaboratively with her on that from legal ops. But we're seeing all of these efficiencies that we're getting out of automating our process, to Connie's point. I
Mm.
think the key though that I always like to tell my team, and they're probably sick of me saying this, is technology allows you to like automate your process, but it doesn't fix your process, right? You have to identify what your process is first and document it. And then to Connie's point, it helps you identify maybe where there are gaps, but you have to do all that work. Don't buy technology to go solve your processes, right? Identify your process, make sure that it's streamlined, and then technology enables you to then automate that, which is amazing. And then you get to have like really, really fun results like this that you get to share with leadership and your sales team if you're a revenue generating company. But I think also to Connie's point earlier, change management, right? Like this is not something that we implemented and rolled out and said, see you later, right? It's something that we are constantly enhancing. I think we actually have an enhancement maybe next week that we're rolling out on our NDAs to continue to make it better and better based upon a feedback loop that we've created with our sales team. And
Mm.
I think you can probably tell I'm very excited about this. It's a big win, and it's only going to get better, right? We're continuing to automate all of our different kinds of contracts here at Elastic, and our next big rollout is December 9th, and we're automating our entire reseller agreement, where legal will not get involved at all for the most part, and the same with our letters of authorization, which is such a need for, and again, this is actually a better win for the business than even is for legal. To I think Janine's point earlier is they're coming to legal for us to help them solve these things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Super,
Jen, what
super
you're
cool.
talking what you're talking about, it truly is creating a competitive advantage for the business because you're
Yeah.
speeding up quote cash.
Hmm.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
anybody who has rolled out workflow know that you're seeing these kinds of huge percentage increases. And
Mm.
I also, I'm going to just jump on your buy it in components bandwagon. I think it is a very interesting way to put a really top-notch technology solution together.
Mm.
There may be a couple of you on the call today that remember putting stereos together. So you would buy the best speaker, and then you would buy the best
Mm.
turntable, and they would be from different companies, and you would end up with a best-in-class solution. And because of how legal technology has evolved, that is a very viable option when putting together an end-to-end workflow. It also allows you to take it in smaller bites
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
because, right, you can test the repository for 6 months. Then you can test the intake for 6 months. And because change management is such a killer to technology,
Mm.
moving more slowly often behooves the entire enterprise.
We talk about it a lot in our legal ops team is go slow to go fast, right? If we take our time now and we're very intentional about the work that we're doing, we have the feedback loop, it's going to allow us for greater velocity down the road. And it's already showing in the work that we're doing. And it's really it's super exciting to see it happen, right? Like you hear these theories and philosophies about how to approach a lot of this, and then you start doing it, and then you're like, oh, like this isn't just, some people writing stuff down on a piece of paper. Like this actually works, right? No, I couldn't agree more, Connie.
So I just put that down. Go slow to move fast.
Hmm.
Did I get it
Yeah.
right? Because
We go slow to go fast is what we say, but same
go
same
slow.
same idea.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I should have it tattooed.
I love
You should have it on each forearm so you can be like, go slow to go fast.
it. Matching tattoos, Connie, next year in Vegas.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh my goodness.
It is a really fascinating point, though, because I think rewind 12 months ago, this was a lot more, to your point, Jen, like theory. It's like on paper, we should be able to put these different pieces together that are best in breed. And then now I think people like you have lived it and it's generated really positive results. And so it's such a great playbook, I think, for the rest of the industry to consider because now as technology is moving so quickly, because the question is like, why now? Why this change? And it's because technology is moving so quickly, you do want to have a best in breed flexibility and approach to your tech stack, right?
I think the other thing that I should mention also is the other reason that this works for us is we get to meet our users where they are, right? So
Mm.
sales doesn't want to come into a new tool. They live and breathe in Salesforce. And so that's where they kick it off from. They still are in Salesforce. Their process really hasn't changed much, except for we've made it easier for them. And I think
Mm.
that's the other reason that we've had such great adoption is we get to integrate Checkbox with Salesforce that makes the whole process easier for sales and for legal, and we get to keep our users where they are, which I think is another beauty of what we're trying to do here.
Amazing. Connie, we talked a little bit about the modularization of CLM, Jen's example. Do you see it in any other category as well? Is this like industry wide or is this really just contracting at this point?
No, oh heavens no. So
Okay.
it's why I love it. This is the reason I love workflow because
Mm.
you can put it in anywhere and you can put it in across the enterprise. You are not confined to legal and you're certainly not confined to contracts. I mean, the next
Mm.
you can go into compliance, you can go into
Mm.
your labor and
Mm.
employment, you can track subscriptions. I the list and the ability to use workflow everywhere is so enormous that really, if you only had one technology to put in, that's the technology you should put in because it's so versatile and you can use it everywhere. And
Mm.
for when I was at NetApp, and Anna's on the phone, so Anna, speak up. You can use it as an evangelical technology tool. You can bring it as a gift because I'm told you that legal was late to the technology world. And because of that, our technologies are generally better and more user-friendly. And so it's very easy to say, here, you want a little bite of this candy? And so
Mhm.
that's what we did. It all you have to do really is to taste it because it is so impactful and it has such a easy rollout. That's the other reason that I like workflow is because it doesn't require a whole lot of training, right? You send a link and off you go.
Mm.
And so the versatility, and when we were at NetApp, I think we ended up with 130 workflows across the company and across the entire company.
Wow.
And many
Yeah.
of them, probably 25% of those fell within legal. So you can see how, and it goes back to what I was talking about before. We, as a legal department, the focus is growing on focus on AI, and with that comes a focus on legal. And now if we have this relatively simple solution to share as well, then we bring a competitive advantage to the business. And
Mm.
that's really what we all should be striving for.
I think a concrete example that I know we're thinking about, Evan, is e-billing, right? I think
Mm.
e-billing tools are great. And I think from an AI perspective of them being able to understand what's in our OCGs and to flag invoices from there is great. But I don't think e-billing tools provide a good intake process for creating matters in that e-billing tool or for
Mm.
setting for accruals or any of that workflow aspect. And so I think that's another direction that we'll end up going with Checkbox is how can we use workflow automation within our e-billing tool to make it more robust? Keeping right what our e-billing tool does is great and what is the purpose of it, right? But let's not ask it to do more than it really was meant to do.
Yeah. I know that Dave from my team's on this call as well, and he'd be really, I think his ears would have perked up as you said that because he said to me the other day, he said, Evan, I think I'm seeing a trend in the e-billing space to the same effect that we're seeing in the CLM space, where
Yeah.
like people are building now a more modular approach to it. And one of our customers, SAP, this is all public by the way, but SAP they use us for this use case, where they have a really good e-billing tool, they have a really good like reverse RFP auctioning tool with their law firms. But it's the workflow bits. It's the stuff like of intake through to matter creation. It's the approvals, it's the policies and engaging outside counsel and the budgets and the stuff like that. That those
Yeah.
tools don't do well because they're really focused on, like the actual, I don't know, building guidelines, compliance, and the actual building aspect. And so I think we are definitely seeing this sort of modularization of ELM or e-billing, which is also really fascinating. I'm glad you called that out.
Evan, yeah, the other thing that as you talk, you can build workflow that are not going to be in place for years. You can take them up and down because it's so easy to create them.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
quick, it's easy, efficient, there's a good ROI on them, and it adds the flexibility.
Okay. So maybe if I summarize the themes, and I didn't even expect it to go so far down into workflow today, but I think the themes of 2026, if I were to summarize, AI, no surprise there. I think modularization is super interesting, right? The age of best in breed modular approach to building the tech stack, and then probably workflow I would slot right there in the third slot as well. To wrap up for everyone, to both of you, Connie, Jen, what does the future this is a hard question. What does the future legal team look like? Okay, so beyond 2026, but then what should legal teams be doing differently in 2026 to start preparing for that future? Not to be ready for it, but maybe just the first the first steps towards that. What would the future look like for legal teams? What should teams be doing in 2026? Who wants to take that first? Tough one.
Want me to take it?
I'm happy to go. Do you want me to go, Connie?
Okay. Sure.
I mean, I think, this goes back to the macro trends we talked about earlier, right? We're talking about
Yeah.
AI, we're talking about automation, and we're talking about data. Well, when you think about that, our legal ops team specifically probably aren't fully skilled to do all of that. And so all of those require a new talent skill in many ways. And so I think our legal teams are going to see some data scientists. I think they're going to see some legal engineers, possibly some process experts, right?
Mm.
And what does that mean? Like, so if we're making things more efficient and doing more to allow our teams to focus their brain power on what they're meant to be, so our lawyers really working on things that involve the law and not on process or administrative tasks, I guess the question is, do we need to add more lawyers or do we need add more legal ops professionals, right? And so because where does the data
Mm.
scientist sit? Do they sit within legal ops? Do they sit within commercial? I would argue they sit within legal ops, right? Because the purpose of them is really operational in many ways. Um,
Mm.
I could be wrong, but I think that's the direction we're going, is it's more about operations. And to Connie's whole company, it's running legal like a business. And to do that, you have to have
Mm.
operational efficiency. And to do that, you need the right talent and skill set to be able to operationalize things appropriately.
Wow. I can definitely get behind that prediction. That makes a lot of sense to me. Um, and I think as well in that sort of model, like I always think of it as if you add another attorney, there's only a fixed unit of work that they can tackle. But if you add like ops and processes, you scale every attorney, right?
Yeah.
And so there's just a scaling effect of productivity that you get when you invest in things like that, as opposed to just like incrementally adding like more capacity for work. And I don't think that's even an option given, like, if you look at the legal, I don't know, like headcount trend against company growth, it never grows as fast, right? So we need to find alternative ways.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, Connie, what about you?
And I agree. It goes back to what we have seen in the past and where we're going. So we started off with mostly using outside counsel and just a small band of in-house. Then we added technology. Then we added alternative legal service providers and staffing agencies. All of those will be shifting more to the side of technology. And so with law firms charging rates of $3,000 an hour, and we see that
Mhm.
increasing uh, because of part of it is the business model for the law firm. We are going to we are going to need we're going to be pushed into needing to use more technology. We can't afford many $3,000 an hour attorneys. In order to be relevant in the long term, the lawyers are going to need to understand technology like they've not understood it before. That is something that the legal operations teams can bring in and offer to their legal teams. It isn't um, the people who are going to lose their jobs are those people who are not using or know anything about AI. I expect that our legal departments will shrink in size because we are learning how to scale. Uh, and so if you really want to prepare personally for
Mm.
2026, I would suggest that, and this is a suggestion I have given to anybody who has worked for me. You should be looking at a new technology at least once a week. You've got to keep up on what's going on in the industry. And we have a reference model, and under technology, there are 19 categories of legal technologies. You don't have to see one in every single one of those categories, but you do need to have your finger on the pulse. And I'm positive I'm preaching to the choir because it's these kinds of webinars that you attend to keep yourselves up to speed. And I think the last thing is lean into your community. We're moving at a pace that not one person can keep up by themselves. You've got to be part of a community so that when something comes up, and it usually comes up like that, your GC wants an answer or a metric or a data point like now, you need to be able to pick the phone up and call somebody on this webinar to say, I know you've done this before. Help me get started midstream.
Yeah.
Incredible advice. Incredible advice. Um, and I know that the chat has been plenty busy throughout this, by the way. So thank you for all the engagement, friends. If you have any other final questions, do throw it in the chat in the last minute or so here. We are an automation company, so we like to be efficient and give time back, even in webinars like this. But if there are any questions that are burning, please throw them in the chat. Otherwise, Connie, Jen, thank you so much. And again, blow up the chat as well with a bunch of thank yous to Jen and Connie here. These two are incredible. This was one of my favorite conversations that I've had in 2025 as we look into 2026. So thank you so much, Jen and Connie. You and I'm sure we'll continue the conversation for plenty of times to come. So I look forward to the next time we join back together. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanks everyone else as well for joining.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you both.
Loads of fun. Great stuff. All right. See you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.